Hi guys, welcome to Ricky PFC, and in this video I'm going through the Premier League January transfer players who you may and may not know. Quite a few have come in under the radar, and I've identified the ones who I think could be good in the future who currently aren't performing at their best. Let's check it out. Okay, first on the list, you may not have heard of him. Sasa Lukic. He's moved from Torino to Fulham in the Premier League, obviously, because this is a Premier League video. Now he's currently sitting at his limited for £7.19, and that's down from an all-time high of around £35. Again, you must take note that the market is down in general at the moment, especially the limited market, but so are all the other markets around the world, such as the S&P 500 and cryptocurrency and NFTs in general. So if we look into his actual scores, we can see I've got his all-time scores up here. He has not been playing any games for Fulham. This is because during the transfer he was actually injured. He's made one sub appearance since, and only for 1 minute. Although I do think he will play a bigger part in the team. The problem with Lukic is that he is competing with Paulinho, who is a very good central defensive midfielder in that team. So we need to look at his stats in detail from his time at Torino. He averaged 88% passing percentage per game. He also averaged 1.3 tackles per game and 1 shot per game, 1 key passes per game, which are all, as you well know, good for the scoring matrix on Sorare. If we go down to his time at Torino, you can see he was also chipping in with decisives and goals, but his all-round game was pretty solid as well, averaging 15, 20, 25, 10, 27, 46 there, 30 there. So his all-round game is very good as well. Once he's fully fit, he may break into this lineup. A lot of the options I'm giving you in this are lower budget options that are ones to look for the future. I don't really like the idea of buying at the top of the market at the moment with the uncertainty in the platform. So I think he is a great option to have. Another great thing about Sasa Lukic is his missed touches and loss of possession. They are both very low. On average, he loses the ball 0.5 times per game. Not only this, he averages 2.5 long balls per game, as you know is high for the scoring matrix and will get you those all-round scores. He also averages around 45 passes total per game. Now it's 0.1 per pass in the scoring matrix, which means that's 4.5 just on your all-round score, just from little passes. And that's not taking into account long balls and accurate passes and all the other things that he can do on the scoring matrix to boost his all-round game. So Sasa Lukic is one of my picks for the January transfer Premier League players who you might know or might not know. Let's move on to the next player. The next player on my list is Nauriu Ahamada. He's moved to Crystal Palace from Stuttgart. As you can see, his limit is currently sitting at £5.67. and his rare is at £88. This is down from an all-time high in his days at Stuttgart at £50. Ahamada has made 2 sub-appearances since joining, and I predict he may make a bigger impact in the team moving forward. In his season at Stuttgart, he played 17 games, scoring 2 goals. He also chipped in with 2 assists in this time. He averages a passing percentage of 85.7 per game. He averages 1 tackle per game, 0.9 key passes per game, and 1.1 successful dribbles per game. As you can see, he's 20 years of age, so a lot of future utility. He's under 23 until July 1st, 2026. Ahamada for Crystal Palace is one of my picks. Let's move on to the next one. My next pick is young touted talent Hamed Traore, who has moved from Sassuolo over to Bournemouth. He is 23 years of age and he's an under 23 until July 1st, 2024. As you can see, more on the pricey side compared to the last two at £22.58 for his limited, and there's only 6 rare on the market, so there isn't adequate data to give you a look in on that. As you can see, I'd say the average all-time high is around £35 to £40, so he's slightly down like everyone else at the market at the moment. If we look at his scores, we can see as a youngster he's broke into Sassuolo's team and he's been doing very good. A lot of greens, high 80s, some 90s as well. And he started his last 3 games for Bournemouth and he's put in okay scores considering they were a 1-0 loss, a 1-1 draw and a 1-1 win, and a 1-0 win. And he has been playing as a cam. Let's look at some key stats for Traore. In Traore's time playing for Sassuolo and his national team, the Ivory Coast, he's played 154 times despite only being 23. And in that time he scored 20 goals and assisted 9 times. He's also got high stats when it comes to providing big chances. His passing percentage is at 82%, but something negative to consider is that his dispossessions are at 2.1 per game, which means he does lose possession higher than some other players. But this should be offset by some of his other key stats, such as his 1.7 tackles per game. His card is a midfielder card, which means he will score points on the matrix for coming back and making tackles. Not only this, he averages 1.5 key passes per game and 1 long ball per game. Something that may play into his all-round game better than at Sassuolo is at Bournemouth, they are not as an attacking team in the Prem, so they will enjoy less possession, which means he will have to defend more and win the ball back more for your team. The next player in my Premier League January transfer window is Marcel Sabitzer. He's moved from Bayern Munich to Manchester United, which I was very happy about. I've been a long-term fan since his times at Leipzig. He didn't play as much at Bayern, but that's understandable considering the absolute stack of talent in midfield, competing with the likes of Kimmich and Goretzka. And now they've just signed Konrad Laimer, who will move there in the summer. And there's Gravenberch, who has also struggled for game time. Sabitzer is 28 years old. He's been playing as a central defensive midfielder for Manchester United in the last few Premier League games. He can't start in the Champions League due to the clause in his contract in his loan move. His limited is at £16.76, which is slightly down from just before the move, which was when he was at around £18 to £20. His rare is at £159. If we look at his scores, I'm going to focus on his Man United scores mainly. Since coming to Man United, he's put in an all-round score of 17, a 38.5 and a 14.2. All respectable all-round build-up scores. A few things to consider with his all-round game. He's been playing a more defensive role because Casemiro got a red card in one of his games that meant he had a 3-match ban. So he hasn't had that defensive maestro of Casemiro behind him cleaning up the messes in the midfield in front of the defence. Sabitzer is very good at shooting. He likes to get forward, but he's also very aggressive off the ball. It's one of the things that I really like about him. The problem he's had is he's had to be playing a more defensive role, supporting Fred, who is less reliant as a defensive midfielder as he's a box-to-box midfielder. I think these scores will go up when he's partnered with Casemiro, as he will have to be less defensive and he will have more free rein to move forward and get in the Manchester United attacks more. Also to consider, Eriksen is on a long-term injury, so I suspect he will be fulfilling that role, although I think it will be rotated between him and Fred, dependent on the tactical needs of Ten Hag's team based on the opponents. Let's look at some key stats for Sabitzer. One very impressive stat about Sabitzer is his passing percentage. It's 80% across all competitions, across all the teams he's played for. He also makes on average 2.3 tackles per game when playing for Manchester United, which supports my idea of him playing a more defensive role. He also made 1.7 for Bayern Munich. Sabitzer also makes 1.3 interceptions per game, which I think is due to Ten Hag's playstyle of pressing and pressing the ball aggressively. It suits Sabitzer's playstyle, who likes to be aggressive on the ball, win the ball back and distribute play forward. He also makes 0.8 shots per game. If you look at his game time when he's playing, he is fearless when it comes to shooting, and he has scored quite a lot of goals, especially for Leipzig in the past. Some absolute corkers in the Champions League, if I do say so myself. He also makes 1.3 key passes per game, which I think will add up to more key chances when Casemiro is back from his red cards. Let's move on to the next player. My next pick is Kamaldeen Sulemana. He's 21 years old and he'll be an under 23 until 2026. Currently, you can pick his limited up for £15.24 or his rare for £278. This young man was a very highly touted talent when he was at Rennes, and he's moved from Rennes to Southampton in the January transfer window. If we look at his scores, we can see here he has started the last 2 games for Southampton, but Southampton have been struggling, losing their manager, and this could be part of that struggle in my opinion. But if we go down here, we can see he has chipped in with decisives for Rennes, and he also spent quite a lot of time injured. But despite this, his price is still fairly high at £15, as he's quite a highly touted talent. He's meant to be very, very good. He's down from an all-time high of around £500, believe it or not. But I believe that was overinflated in the limited market, and I don't think it's going to go up to that again. But I could be wrong. But at £15, he's an interesting one. He's a left midfielder. Let's look at his stats in more detail. As you can see further back in the timeline of his scores, there is a lot of high greens. That is because when he wasn't injured playing for Rennes, he had 79 appearances. And in that time, he scored 19 goals and provided 6 assists. In his last 2 games for Southampton, he's actually averaged 2.7 shots on goal per game and 3.3 successful dribbles. That is high. I think when Southampton hit some better form, if they hit that, this is going to translate to higher scores. Even if Southampton get relegated, I feel that they will be at the top of the Championship, which could result in his price going up because some of these second division Europe players are rather high. He also averages 1 key pass per game and 1.3 long balls per game, which is good for the scoring matrix as a forward card. My next player is Paul Onuachu. He has moved from Genk to Southampton also, and he has also been starting as a striker for Southampton. He's currently sitting at £12.87 for his limited or £111 for his rare. He is an absolute goal machine for Genk. He scored a ridiculous amount of goals in his time playing there. He is 28 years of age, so slightly on the older side, but still in his prime for a striker. In his time at Genk, he played 114 times and scored 79 goals and provided 7 assists. Incredible numbers. He also averaged 2.7 shots on goal per game and wins 1.8 aerial duels per game. Something to consider, he is 6'5". He is the ultimate target man, and I predict with Southampton hopefully coming up in a bit of form, sorting the managerial situation out, he's going to score goals. He's going to cause defenders a lot of problems in the Premier League. good indication of Onuachu being a target man is the fact that he scored 6 headed goals in one season. If we look at Onuachu's scores, you can see it is green heaven, dark green everywhere. He was an absolute goal machine. Will he replicate this form at Southampton? I doubt he will, because Southampton are not as dominant a team in the Premier League as what Genk are in the Juniper Pro League. But that's not to say that he's not going to score goals and be a pivotal part of Southampton's goals and team performances moving forward. Not only that, at 28, if he does well at Southampton, he may secure a move to another team bigger in the Premier League or in Europe. My next player is a goalkeeper, Keylor Navas. Previously of PSG, made a move to Nottingham Forest and he's become their #1 goalkeeper. I think that he will also remain their #1 goalkeeper, probably into retirement or until he moves to a less competitive league. Being 36 years of age, this means that he is on his way to retirement, but he's still not too old for a goalkeeper. His limited's at £40 and his rare is at 387. Forest have picked up in form and it looks like if they carry on, they won't get relegated. Obviously, it goes without saying that Navas has great scores, formerly coming from PSG, who are such a dominant team in the French league. But he's also put in some good performances for Notts Forest, as we can see here. A 76 and a 62 with an all-round of 27.3. This was when they drew 1-1 to Manchester City on the weekend, which shows that he is making a lot of good saves and he's still a good goalkeeper. I actually watched that game and he was making some great saves and he did keep them in that game. My next player is another very sought after talent, Tete, who has moved from Lyon to Leicester City in the Premier League. His limited is currently at £18.70 and his rare is at 173, and he's a right attacking midfielder but can also play as a central midfielder, central striker as well. As you can see, his all-time high was around £250. Looking at his all-time scores, we can see he has been a very good player for Lyon, but he's also chipping in with decisives for Leicester. He's only played 4 games so far for Leicester. He started 3 of those. And as you can see, he scored a goal against Aston Villa. As you can see, he put in a decisive against Aston Villa in a 4-2 win with Leicester. And he also put in a 21.70 all-round score, giving him an 81.70 overall. I think he's going to be a very good player for Leicester, in my opinion. Let's look at his stats in more detail. In only 3 games for Leicester, he's averaged 2.7 shots per game. And in his time at Lyon, he averaged 1.7 shots per game. He also scored 6 goals in his time at Lyon. In only 3 games for Leicester, he has 100% pass accuracy on his long balls, which, as we know, long balls are very good for the scoring matrix. For both teams, he's also fouled on average 2 times per game, which is also good for the scoring matrix. He scored 1 goal in 3 games for Leicester, and his overall passing percentage for both teams is 80+%. I think Tete is a great option, especially at this price, and I think he will be good in the future. My next Premier League transfer pick is Pablo Sarabia. He's currently 30 years old. He can play on both wings, in the centre or as a striker. I really like him as a player. I followed him for a long time. Very consistent performer for his teams such as Getafe, Sevilla, PSG, Sporting, and now he has made the move from PSG to Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think he will play a big part in the team moving forward, and he has been starting games for Wolves in all of their Premier League games this season so far. As you can see, his limited is very cheap at £6.79 and his rare is at £53.43. As you can see here, his scores are very good. He had a collection of greens here when he was playing for Sporting, which is down here, chipping in with lots and lots of decisives. If you look here, during his time at Sporting, he scored 15, assisted 6 in 29 games. Came back to the PSG and remained a fringe player before moving to Wolves, and he's played 4 games for Wolves so far. Sorare averages 80% plus on his passing percentages. He averages 1.8 shots per game, 1.3 key passes per game, and he also averages 1.3 crosses per game. I predict that he's going to start chipping in with more goals and assists for Wolves, and they will pick up in form under their new manager. My next player is Georginio Rutter. He's 20 years old and he's an under 23 until 2026. He's a striker / right striker, and his limited is at £19.72, rare £96. This is down from an all-time high of around £200. Rutter has moved from Hoffenheim to Leeds United on a permanent transfer, and he was a very sought after talent at Hoffenheim. I personally really enjoyed watching him play for that team and thought that he would make a move to the Prem in the future, which he has. Leeds have been struggling for form and they recently sacked their manager Jesse March. But it is now looking like they are about to sign their new manager, Javi Garcia, who is the former Watford manager. I think Javi Garcia will make Rutter a bigger part of his squad. I think he will recognise the value in him as being a very good player. If we look at his scores, we can see he did chip in with a fair few goals and assists in his time at Hoffenheim, and he did have some spells where he missed 1 or 2 games through injury also, as you can see down here. They originally got him from Rennes, which seems to be where you get a lot of the young attacking talents from at the moment. They seem to be doing really good at bringing those through. For Hoffenheim, Rutter played 15 games last season, scoring 2 goals and 2 assists. In these games, he averaged 1.8 shots per game and 2.1 successful dribbles per game also. One negative aspect of his game is 3.1 bad touches per game on average, which does need improvement, although he does get fouled 1.3 times per game on average, which should offset some of that negative score in the all-round matrix. One thing to consider is since joining Leeds, he has made 3 sub-appearances so far. In the statistics in these games, his coming back, defending and winning the ball has been high. Now unfortunately, only cards on the market for him at the moment are forward cards, so he wouldn't get any score for making these tackles and defensive actions, but he could be starting attacks, which in turn could translate to higher scores and to decisive scores as well. This, I think, is down to the change in play style with him going to Leeds. They are an all-out attack, all-out defend team. If the team goes forward, the whole team goes forward and they defend together as a unit. Will be interesting to see how he does at Leeds. And my final pick is Mikhailo Mudryk of Ukraine. He plays as a left midfielder and he's moved from Shakhtar Donetsk to Chelsea in the English Premier League. The interesting thing about Mudryk's price timeline is in fact he isn't down from all-time highs as much as all the other players. As you can see, his all-time high leading up to his high moving up to Chelsea when the January transfer window was in full swing was £250 to £200, and now he's dropped down to £70 and £623 for his rare. In his first sub appearance for Chelsea, he looked electric, and I thought, wow, this guy could be very good for Chelsea. But due to Chelsea's poor form recently under Graham Potter, he has been struggling. There's been quite a number of occasions where he's been brought off at half time or has only played a half of a game, and there has been times where I think he has looked really poor. In my opinion, even at £70 at the moment, I think he's probably overpriced compared to some of the other players I've shown you in this video, especially considering Chelsea's poor form. I do predict that the Chelsea owners will actually back Potter and he will bring it round. They have had a lot of new players come in, and he needs to implement new systems with all the players to fit them in and get the unity correct. Looking at his scores, you can see there isn't that much data, apart from in the Champions League and playing for Ukraine. He has chipped in with some decisives, and he was touted as being a huge talent when he was at Shakhtar, getting interest from Chelsea, Arsenal and many other clubs around Europe. When you look at his stats in detail for Chelsea, they have been pretty poor. He has very high dispossessions. He has also averaged only 0.5 successful dribbles per game. Don't let this put you off though. What I would recommend is keeping an eye on his price and Chelsea's form, because I do think he is a good player and I think he will be a star in the future. I just think the move has not been good for him due to all the things that are going off at Chelsea at the moment in general. So that's it guys. They're my picks for the January Premier League transfer players. Some you may have known already. There were some high profile ones in there, but a lot of low profile ones with some juicy stats behind them. I think we can all agree could be doing a lot better and could be some players that you could pick up. I hope you've enjoyed the video guys. A lot of time and effort and research has gone into this video. If you do appreciate the content, please remember to like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Anyway guys, thanks for watching and I will catch you next time.